started looking more into your coffee shop, and I thought the concept was so, like, your coffee shop in general is beautiful. But
Thank
I
you.
was also curious about like how you really started in the coffee world, and um, I guess like what it's been like for you. So I wanted to reach out and like kind of hear your story, and yeah, that's why I kind of reached out. I was really curious to hear more about like what made you want to open a coffee shop and like what kind of got you
How
to
did
the.
you find out about me though?
So I follow Mukhtar on Instagram,
Oh,
and
Mukhtar, yeah.
he's like a big inspiration for me with my coffee journey. And then I saw him post about you a few times, and I just kind of like obviously went to your profile through that and was curious.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. Yeah, that's such an interesting story as well from his side.
Yeah, reading his book, I've read his book, and I was very much like, wow, that's a wild story. And it kind of that's what helped me with wanting to hear other people's stories. Is obviously like you look at other people face value, and you don't really know what they've been through and what they've experienced and how they got to the point that where they're at. You can only see the end result. So I was like, well, this
True.
is interesting. I wonder who else also either had a rough time coming into where they're at or had a lot of um, different pathways to get to the point where they're at. Because I know a lot of people, when they're in the coffee world, they don't really start that way.
While you're talking, I remembered another woman that I met recently in the world of coffee that happened in Dubai recently.
Mm-hmm.
And she also, like, she's into roasting and she lives in the US, but um, she has a background in, I think, genetics, like
Oh.
genetics engineering or something. I was like, wow, that's amazing. And she's
Mm-hmm.
now hosting a podcast as well. So she also
That's
like
funny.
goes through, yeah, stories of people. Yeah, her podcast is called Map It Forward, and such an interesting person as well. Like if you're gonna talk to her, if you're interested as well, she's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting story. But yeah, about me, before getting into coffee, I never drank coffee in my life. Um, as a kid, in here in the UAE, I'm from Abu Dhabi,
Mm-hmm.
the capital of the UAE, and born and raised there. So we have a culture, like, we're very much inspired by the Iranian and Indian culture mostly, because of the trade line and the past and all of that. So we get a lot of spices. So we grew up with the chai. It's like the chai with milk. So the spiced
Mm-hmm.
tea and milk. And that was what I grew up with. So, and then coffee was not a big thing. I mean, it was, in my view, it was the adult drink. It's like every house needs to have coffee, a pot of coffee and a pot of tea. And that's like an Arab thing. Whenever guests come over, then you have to give them coffee, and that's like part of the
Right.
tradition. And for me, growing up, that was always the adult drink that kids are not supposed to come close to, or not. I wasn't even curious to explore it. And then as I became a teenager, then this cafe came to be, the cool drink that everybody drinks, to keep you awake while you're studying.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried it, but I was still not interested. Like, I didn't like the flavor. It was too bitter for me. And then a friend of mine, one day when I was in college, she made Arabic coffee, and because I was living at the dorms with the other girls, and she made Arabic coffee, and she was like, "Why don't you try it?" Because I told her like, "Oh, I've never tried it before," and she was like, "It's okay, you can try it." So when I tried it, and I remember, and it was an embarrassing story, and still until this day, I'm friends with her, and it's still embarrassing. Um, I told her that it lacks sugar. There's no sugar in there. And she was like, "You're not supposed to add sugar to coffee. This is why traditionally the Arabs have it with dates, because you get the sugar
Yeah.
from the dates, and then that's why you drink the coffee with the spices." So I didn't like it. And then in 2008, I moved to Melbourne, Australia for my bachelor's. And a lot of the kids here in the UAE, like, they get scholarships to study overseas. And I didn't get the scholarship at the time, but I really wanted to study overseas. Like, my dream Since I was in high school, it was to go and to a college in the US. But at the time when I graduated, it was frowned upon, like for me as a girl, like to go alone as an Arab girl and no family over there. So it was like it was not a common thing.
Right.
So they were like, no, you have to study in the UAE. So I was like, okay. Then I studied in Dubai, but then I got an opportunity where my brother was going, like he got a scholarship. And I was like, it's never too late, I'm still wanting to do it. So I would transfer and get credits there and I would get an offer. But this time it was in Australia, it wasn't in the US. So I was like, it's
Hmm.
fine by me. Because I went to Australia with my family a few times and I was like, that's such a nice place. And I would like to go. So I applied my paperwork and everything, but I didn't get the scholarship. But I got an offer to study in the university over there. So then I was like, I can't give up on this dream. And then I spoke to my family and all of that. And then my uncle was kind enough and he was like, I will support your studies by paying for your fees, university fees. But you have to sort yourself out in terms of like your pocket money because he wanted me to depend on myself.
Right.
And yeah, because they wanted, my family wanted me to know that it's not as easy to live overseas. So they wanted me to see the reality of it, like how
Hmm.
hard it is to just like go independent because I was so persistent since I was a kid to be independent. And
Yeah.
then yeah, so I agreed straight away. I was like, sure, I would go and I would find, a source of income. And because they refused to give me a scholarship since I wasn't a fresh graduate, and the priority was for fresh graduates, and I have been already graduated like 4 years ago since then. By the time, anyways, so long story short, I went to Melbourne, and then as I get to know start making friends over there, they told me, why don't you go and work in a cafe? That's the best way to get cash in hand and you don't have to go through like taxations and all of that. And I was like, okay, cool. So I started applying to the cafe in the university and I got the job. So part time, but in waitressing. And then, so every day I would go and waiter and then I would notice a huge line, especially in the morning. So I would start at 5 a.m. And then since like 6 a.m., because later on I have classes, so I have to go to my classes. Since 6 a.m., the students like line up all for coffee. And I was like, that is insane. Like, why can't you just like get enough sleep? And like, why would they line up for this drink? What's so special about it? I tried
Hmm.
it and I didn't like it. And then I asked the barista, I was like, can I please try a coffee, the most common coffee that everybody, drinks? And at the time, flat white was a thing in Melbourne. And then he was like, there you go. This is called a flat white. It's espresso with milk, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. So I tried it first time in 2008. And that was it for me. It was like, oh, that moment that this is it's so nice. And like, it was not bitter. It had like some nice notes and it was like chocolatey with milk. It didn't
Hmm.
taste like the coffee that I had in mind. So since then I fell in love with it and I asked the barista to teach me everything about it. And then I went and I found like a coffee academy and I enrolled in a hospitality course, including like barista basics, steaming milk and all of that. And then just my passion kept on growing bigger and bigger. And then I was promoted from a waitress to a barista. And since then I've been working as a barista in multiple coffee shops around Melbourne. And yeah, so I kept on doing that for 10 years because I decided that I wanted to stay in Melbourne. So I did my bachelor's and then I worked for a bit and I did my master's and then eventually I had to come back. Yeah, so when I came back after 10 years, I felt like an alien. I spent my youth in Australia, like 10 years. All my friends are over there. My friends here, my school friends, all moved on. And especially that it was, it's like a segregated society. So I went to a all girls school. So girls usually like by the time when I came back, I think I was 27. So they
That's
would have
my
been
age
married
now.
by then. Yeah. So everybody's like got married, moved on
Yep.
with their lives and started like
Hmm.
new families, blah blah, and started working. And I was this fresh graduate starting over, and I felt like an alien. and I felt very, very sad and disconnected. And I wanted to go back, so back to Melbourne. And I planned to open a coffee shop in Melbourne. So I was like, my life is there, so I'm gonna invest even more in there. So I started looking here and there, but it didn't work, because I'm not a citizen, and it's just too
Mm-hmm.
complicated. Um, so that was in 2018. And then I was like, why can't I just do the same thing here and start to create the space that's got everything that I need or that I lack. I create the culture that I'm missing so much. Because at that time, the cafe culture here was just, like the majority of cafes are just a place where you go drink coffee and stay for like half an hour and then just leave. So for me, that was boring because when I was in
Yeah.
Australia, I would meet people, I would just like randomly chat to people, and then they would approach me. And then
Yeah.
if you see
It would make
someone reading
community
a
that way.
exactly, so it's like a community, and I couldn't find anything similar to it here. So I was like, why don't I create that space? So then I decided to do it, and I did it, and that's how TTMB or To the Moon and Back was born, basically.
Where did you get the name from?
It was very random. I was I remember being on the couch and then trying to find a name that was not cliche, or like I wanted nothing to do with coffee. So I wanted
Okay.
something that is that would convey how much I'm passionate about coffee and how long it took me, even though like it was ironic because coffee is a huge part of the Arab culture, but
Yeah.
it took me to actually go to Australia, which was like far, far away from where I am, away from my culture, to fall in love with this drink or with the beans. And then just the phrase came to my mind. I was like, to the moon and back. I was like, oh, interesting. So to the moon and back is can like it translate in my mind. It makes sense. So I will try my best to make sense and explain it. When you say to the moon and back, like I love you to the moon and back, it conveys like
Mm-hmm.
how much you are passionate, or like how far are you willing to go in order to prove how much you love something or someone. And for me, it kind of like translated that distance that I had to travel. So to the moon and back is like from Dubai to Australia and then back. And then I brought the coffee beans from there because I worked in the roaster, some of the roasters there. So then I decided to talk to my friends who are roasting coffee beans in Melbourne and ship them in Dubai. And that's how I kept the connection
Mm-hmm.
between here and there. And I thought, to the moon and back is perfect. So it's about the distance. It's about how much I'm passionate about coffee, and it's a cool name. I was like, okay, to the moon and back.
So since you've opened an Australian inspired coffee shop, has it made you revisit Arabic coffee at all and make you enjoy it? Or do you still feel like you would prefer Australian coffee beverages versus Arabic coffee?
No, I loved Arabic coffee. Like I drink Arabic coffee like crazy. And because the Arabic coffee is lightly roasted, especially
Mm-hmm.
like if you would compare, for example, the Saudi one to the UAE one, the Saudi one is even lighter. So they call it shagra, just like the blonde roast. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very, very high in caffeine, and that would keep me awake. And I really enjoy it. And it's just got different flavor, and they add spices to it. So I find that now as an adult is an exciting beverage.
That's good. I guess like I'm curious to, you said that your family wanted you to be able to be independent but understand the responsibilities of being an adult on your own, especially being a woman in a different country. So when
Yeah.
you told them about you wanting to open a coffee shop in UAE, were they supportive?
Honestly, I didn't tell anyone. I'm a secretive person. So,
Okay,
like what I did with applying and getting the offer, so I don't talk unless like things are done already. So
I
I
can
make a
understand.
decision, I think about it thoroughly from all angles, and then I do the risk assessment in my head, and
Mm-hmm.
then I approach the thing and I make it happen, and I go like, oh, by the way, I'm starting this process. Like
I'm
I'm
I'm a
opening
lot
a
like that
cafe.
too.
Just FYI. But when I told them, they were very, very supportive, and they were shocked because um, I'm the first businesswoman in the family, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a thing that runs in the family. Like the majority of like my siblings and cousins, they're all employees, and I'm the only one who's decided to just like take a different path completely.
Right.
And it can be a scary thing
Yeah.
for people here because they're not used to it. They're used to having, it's like the concept of having a job, a stable income, security, and
Mm-hmm.
that's good enough. So for me to take the risk and run my own business, that was a scary thing for them.
Yeah.
But they were supportive, and now the funny like how it's like how embarrassing parents are. So now my mom and dad are into specialty coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So but they live in Abu Dhabi, so they keep on going and trying. They keep in and they keeping up with like every new cafe that opens, and then they would just go and visit, and then they would talk to the barista as if they know me, as if like I'm this famous celebrity, and it's like, oh, our daughter, she has to do with the background. It's like, stop doing
So
that. No,
cute.
I swear, when I go to Abu Dhabi, if I decide sometimes to go to a cafe randomly just for a takeaway coffee, they would know me because my mom would show them a picture. And then, like, now they know me just because of her.
That's
I was like,
cute.
I thank you for being proud, but that is so embarrassing.
Yeah. That's so funny. I could see my
Yeah.
family do the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They've
I
been
guess like,
supportive.
did you ever suffer from, I guess that's a really interesting concept, like going from Abu Dhabi all the way to Melbourne. When you
Mm.
came to Melbourne, was it, I guess like I don't know anything about Australian culture in terms of like community there, but like, did you transition from like the Arabic world into Australia's world like easily, or did you suffer from any kind of like imposter syndrome, or did you feel like alienated, or did you feel welcome?
I felt very welcomed, but so I would say living in Melbourne, so that's Victoria. Victoria is very similar to, I would say, California, if we're going to compare it to the US.
Okay.
So the people are very outgoing, they're very welcoming, it's like they're out there, easygoing and helpful and all of that, friendly. So it was, for me, it was at first it was too much because
Yeah.
I'm not used to that. It's like here it's more of like, and my personality is like, I'm a shy person, I'm an introvert, I don't socialize as much, not even with family. I'm always like with my books, just like isolating myself with my books and my music and films.
I can really relate to
um
this. Yeah.
yeah. So over there they're very loud and they're very social, and I got social anxiety.
Okay.
And so it was too much for me at first because I didn't understand it, and the accent was very intense and strong, the Australian accent, so it took me
Hmm.
a while to even understand it. But then, yeah, completely, I delve into the culture and into the society, the Australian society, and it just grew on me.
Hmm.
But yeah, I would say like a mild suffering at the beginning because it was just something very new. And I felt like, oh, what if I couldn't survive? Because, it's like it was my choice, and I had to go through a lot in order to achieve this dream and be
Right.
independent and try this life. Yeah.
Yeah. So this entire podcast is really about enlightening women's pathways through the industry. So I guess when you
Mm.
started being a barista to owning a coffee shop, and you said that it wasn't really common, especially during that time in Abu Dhabi, for that to happen. At this point
Mm.
now, do you know many women owned coffee shops in Abu Dhabi now?
I do. Yeah, I do know a few. There is, from the top of my head now, there is Nuran, who owns a cafe called Coffee Architecture, and I believe that now they're roasting their own beans as well. And she's a Q grader. And I can't remember many, but yeah, I know a few. I can send you the details later.
I was curious to see if like had that ever been a hindrance for you trying to build yourself in the coffee world? Like, did you ever feel like whether it was a discrimination towards race or if it was a discrimination towards uh, your gender, did it ever make you rethink wanting to do coffee, or had it ever caused an issue that you felt really confused by?
Honestly, not at all.
Well, that's good.
Um, yeah, not in Australia and not even like here when I came to the UAE. Um, I had a very, very exciting journey when it comes to coffee, and it's still very interesting and exciting. And I keep on meeting people from both genders, in the industry and like
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um, but when I first came to the UAE, I remember I visited in my Easter holiday, and that was in 2009 or 2010. And I came to know that there is a place called Coffee Museum in Dubai. And I was like, oh my God, that was the period of obsession with coffee. I was like, oh my God, a coffee museum in Dubai, in my city. I have to go and visit. And then I visited. So I drove from Abu Dhabi to Dubai, and I made it. And it's like located in one of the most exciting areas, like historical areas in Dubai. It's like my favorite now. It's in Deira, a place called Deira. I don't know how much you know about Dubai, but it's by the canal, and it's like old, it's like old shops, and all those like amazing ghetto restaurant and street food, all the good things you would find them there. And then there's the
Mm-hmm.
coffee museum. So I walked in, and I didn't know what I was expecting, but then they had all the old machines, and then they were doing um, Ethiopian coffee, with the popcorn, and then they were doing the Turkish coffee on the sand, and they were doing all multiple types of coffee, and basically like telling you a history about coffee. And at the time, the owner, who's now a very good friend of mine, was giving a tour, and I didn't know that he was the owner, or like he was the manager of the place. And so I was looking lost, like I was there just like looking around, touching things, and I was fascinated. And then he asked me, he was like, "Oh, can I help you?" So, and he's Emirati, he's from Dubai. And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard about this place, and I came to visit, and I'm really excited, that we have such a thing in Dubai." And then he introduced himself, and he told me that he was the owner of the place, and he's happy to give me a tour, and he gave me a tour. And I remember he gave me his card, and he told me, "Let's catch up." And then I told him that I'm traveling the next day back to Melbourne, but I was going to come back. And then I seriously traveled, and then I came back on my next visit, and I went back there. And then they were holding an event. I think it was an AirPress event, and the place was packed with all of the people in the coffee industry from the UAE, from Saudi, from Kuwait, from all over the Gulf region, from Lebanon, from Iran, and the place was packed. And then he started introducing me to everybody, even though he doesn't know me. He was like, "Oh, this is Zainab. She was studying in Australia, and she's a barista over there, and she's very interested, blah, blah, blah." And I started talking to people and meeting people and just like accumulating business cards and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an introduction for me without me knowing it, like a facilitation into the coffee world when I come back.
Mm.
Yeah. And the funny thing, my partner now into the Moon and Back is one of those people that I was randomly introduced to in that
Wow.
event. Yeah. So I found the community very supportive, and everywhere. Like personally, I did not struggle at all being a woman, or like having no experience in the market here. It was such a empowering community, and everybody wanted to help. So it just felt all smooth, and not
That's great.
yeah, no discrimination against gender, or like I didn't feel like I was all the difficulties that I faced. I know that my other male friends did face as well in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not nothing particular to my gender or anything else.
Yeah, That's great. Wow, that's funny how that all worked out. That it
Yeah.
that's a really nice story to hear, actually. Um, so I guess like I'm curious because you didn't know me. What made you want to be? What made you want to like? Especially since from what it sounds like, uh, you saying that you're a private and more introverted person. I'm very curious to, since you really don't know me, what made you want to like sit and talk with me?
Because you're in the coffee industry and you're
Mm-hmm.
interested about people's stories. And my background, yes, I do coffee. Yes, I am in the F&B business, but my studies and my background is I'm a psychologist. So I am very, very curious about people and about people's
Mm-hmm.
stories as well. So I'm always interested in getting to know people who are, especially in the same industry, and trying to exchange knowledge and experiences, and the challenges, if any, exist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's true, I am an introvert, but it's just easier because I'm hiding behind the screen, first of all. And it's interesting, we're talking about coffee. Uh, and
I appreciate your
some
honesty. That's really funny. I think it's like it's really interesting. I think so something quick. I'm Iraqi, so I
mm,
I'm from the Gulf, but I was born and raised here, so I never really had a chance to visit. I would love to, but my family really didn't let me. But
mm,
I think I'm very stereotypical for my people. I'm very loud, extroverted, and which is funny because you said it's very much similar to Australian culture, which is like, wow, I probably wouldn't have really much of a rough transition going there either because I'm very, very boisterous and very outgoing. So it's like funny because you kind of do remind, which is funny. This is actually funny. You remind me of my cousin. Her name is Rahef, but her mother's name is Zainab. So it's like full circle.
oh.
She's also very introverted and very private with herself too. But um, yeah, no, I think like for me, like I think the biggest part that also we can both kind of agree on this is like I just genuinely do love the coffee community, but I've always been very fascinated with the stories and wanting to know more about people's backgrounds and how they got to the point and where their connection lies within the coffee world for themselves. So
Mm,
you starting off not liking coffee at all and then enjoying it through a flat white, and then it kind of accumulated over time to you finally going back home and kind of like opening. It's a mixture of both of yourself and what you loved and wanted to bring back home and show to people in your community too. So
yeah,
it kind of like came full circle for you. So yeah,
yeah.
that's great.
And when I think back at it, like about my childhood and all, it kind of like all makes sense, even
Mm-hmm.
though it's like my family, typical Arab family, they wanted me to become a doctor or an engineer, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna become a
Same.
doctor, and that's what I started in Dubai. I actually studied medicine for 4 years, and I was like, nope, that's not for me. I knew
Mm-mm.
that from the first year, but it's like there's pressure on you. It's like you have to continue what you've already
Yeah.
started. And I was like, no, it's not for me. They're like, no, 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 you have to. And then eventually I was like, nope, it's not for me. And then I decided, psychology is kind of like is another interesting thing,
Yeah.
even though I wanted to become an artist.
An artist.
Um,
Wow.
an artist, yeah. So that was my thing since I was a kid. I was interested in art and food.
That's great, honestly.
Yeah. And then, so it was like, I'm going to study psychology, and also I'm going to study digital media and film because I love films and I love art. And if I combine those two, then I can become a film director and I can make psychology thrilling films.
That'd be awesome. I love those kind of movies too.
Yeah. And that was the plan. So I did study both. And then a whole new world kind of like opened up when I had that sip of coffee and I worked as a waitress, and I was like, okay, now I'm into the F&B. But as a
Mm,
kid, I used to always, so my mom is like a health freak more or less. So as kids, I was not allowed to have ice cream. Chocolates only like once a week, and only one bar of chocolate. We were not allowed to have fast food. So it was always like healthy. You're forced to kind of like eat your veggies and drink your cup of milk and all of that. No cereal for you because it's like full of unrefined sugar, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So, but my dad is the total opposite. My dad like loves food. He's a chef. I mean, like a home cook, and he's just very passionate about it. And then I was closer to my dad as a kid, and then I would always go out with him, and we would go and explore. And he would take me every time to a restaurant, a new restaurant, and then he would tell me, "Don't tell your mom." And then we would just try it together. And then I forgot completely about that memory. And I think it's like my dad has a big influence on me, like with the passion for food and beverage and all of that with this thing. But then I diverted away from it because of the pressure, to become a doctor. And then going back to Melbourne and doing the things that I love, I started discovering myself again. And I was like, actually, you know what? Without thinking about it, I think it was subconscious thing. I was like, now I'm back to what I originally, my authentic self, what I'm originally passionate about and interested about. Because I left the industry, like I don't do psychology anymore, and I quit my job, even though it was a horrible time. And I quit because when I decided to quit, COVID happened. I was like, oh,
wow,
great.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, and that was a huge challenge. It was a very, very scary time because I quit my job in April 2020. And that's when all countries decided to lock down one after the other and then shutting down airports. And I did not imagine that it would escalate to that extent. And it was just the beginning for TTMB. It was the first year. And I felt like everything was like, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose that place that I built for myself. And that was a very scary idea to live with. Like, I didn't want to think that, oh my God, I have failed. Like all my dreams and everything, like I'm just going to lose it all at once. Because To the Moon and Back became like a community space, like everything I wanted.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful and blessed to have like I think 98% of my friends now I met them at TTMB in the cafe.
Yeah.
And they helped me set up the place. They've if you come and visit, you would notice all the details and aesthetic and the place are actually from the people in the community. Like a person that I met, she made the pottery stuff. She made the plant pots for me. She made it's a handmade, and she was doing it from home. The clay plates and balls and all of that. That was the very beginning. And then another friend of mine, I met her also randomly online, and she resides in Jeddah. And she's the one who's supporting me, like doing all my illustrations and design, because she's an illustrator and she's amazing, very talented. So I decided like she's gonna, do all the designs for me, all the loyalty cards and the menu and whatnot. And then like all the details, like when you come into the place, you wouldn't know, but then if I would talk to you about it, like every piece has a story and every piece is a contribution from someone in the community. Yeah. So this is why the place is very special for me. It's not just a business. It's basically my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it made it through?
Yeah. I'm grateful. I did make it through.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to rebuild ourselves from again. Yeah. But now I'm available full time. So now I'm trying to be there and like be more involved in other things, because I'm the one who curates all the recipes as well. Since I'm like passionate about food, it's like whatever I make at home, if I like it, I was like, that could actually go on the menu. It could be special. Let's see if people like it. And I would just call my friends and go like, hey, or I would put on Instagram, I'm doing tasting, free food, come over. And if they approve it, if the majority likes it, I'm like, oh, it's gonna go on the menu. And then that's how I would train the staff, the kitchen staff, and then they would go like, okay, that's a new dish.
I love that though. It seems like what you've created is something very empowering for obviously yourself, but the people surrounding you, and you've been able to meet so many different people through that experience, which is it's very wholesome also.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm honestly very, very grateful for everybody, like everyone's support. We're all supporting each other because we're all startups and small businesses, and we've kind of like fought the odds, especially the girls. You know, it's like in this and the Gulf. You know, fight the odds and be independent and start something that not every family is gonna encourage, especially when it comes to business and being independent, because it's like it's risky and it's something new. But what makes me happy is like I started seeing more and more girls being courageous and taking those steps towards being independent and following their passion and doing what they want to do, and they're honestly like they're doing an amazing job. And I have some other friends who are supporting me as well by calling me, like today, for example, one of my friends is getting married, and he decided to have us as TTMB cater for the wedding. So we have like a tiny booth, and like we're serving coffee to the guests at the reception. So that was very cute.
That is cute. That's nice.
Yeah.
I like the fact that it's more than just a business. It's sort of like this has become a lifestyle for you also. Yeah. Which is
pretty much.
There's like so much like actual gratification through this for you, I feel like, with the people who are involved, the people you keep meeting, what you keep creating for women and other people as well. And where would you like To the Moon and Back to go from here?
Honestly, I have high hopes for To the Moon and Back. I wanted to become an international brand, and I wanted to become an empowering tool for everybody around the world. Like, not necessarily they need to do exactly what I did, but you know, it's like that everything is possible. Like me as a girl who's coming, you know, from a small family in Abu Dhabi, and being born in a time where girls were not allowed to do many things independently. And, you know, it's like I fought all the odds and the circumstances. Like I still kept on holding on that dream of mine. And eventually I was able to make it happen. And honestly, like when I look back at my life and the circumstances and looking at myself and where I've reached today, I believe that a lot of people can do it, and they can follow their dreams, and they can, you know, it's like we live only once. So for me, I feel like if I spread my story, and I'm pretty sure there are lots of amazing stories, and sometimes you get stuck in a place mentally where you feel like there's no way out, or like you cannot do this, or like you have to give up and you have to go by the norms and do what everybody else is doing just in order to survive. And then, but that's not the case. We live only once, and you know, it's like we need to make it a life worth living. So if you do what you love and you keep on fighting for it, eventually you'll find a way. And if that did not work out, I'm pretty sure that other doors will open where you will discover new passions, and then, you know, it's like it will lead you somewhere more beautiful, rather than forcing yourself to live in a certain way, or like to do a certain things just because people think that's the right thing to do, or that's what's available at the moment. That's the easy reach.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting hearing your story now, thinking back how many doors you actually kind of like went in and out of. Obviously, like you still incorporate artistic abilities that you have still, but having gone through the medical program for a while, and then you wanted to do film, and then you did psychology, and then all these things. So it's like, I think that there's no linear way to go on a path, especially since now you've found something that aligns with you and your spirit and what you want to accomplish out of your life and what you want to help other people find themselves. Because I don't know, coffee shops also they're like a safe haven. They're a safe place for people to decompress, kind of take a step out of their own realities in their own life to either meet new people or kind of understand and find themselves, or just take a minute to kind of sit back and breathe and take a break. And it's just, I think based off of just what I'm listening to, it sounds like the integrity of To the Moon and Back has a lot of potential to grow into something really beautiful for not just Abu Dhabi, but hopefully for the rest of what you're trying to accomplish globally.
I really hope so, because I dream of, all the coffee people who are really passionate about what they're doing, because coffee is making a difference in people's life. And as we said, it's not just a beverage, there are lots of other factors that come together. And then meeting people like you and like the other people that I met in the industry, like whether here in Dubai during like certain events or like just randomly in cafes when traveling the world, it's very nice like for us all to come together, even if we are like in different locations across the globe. It's nice for us to be connected in a certain way, and for our businesses to have maybe, I don't know, like collaborations, like exciting things every now and then, and like share ideas and learn from each other's experiences. Um, just to have that sort of connection.
I guess I'm also curious that during the duration of your journey to get to this point, did you have somebody who kind of like helped you inspirationally? Like, did you have a role model, or was there like a specific memory that you had where someone sat you down and gave you really good advice that like has stuck with you to where you're at now?
Honestly, it's a group of people and a group of events. It's a very complex, like it's all the experiences that I've went through, and even though I'm an introvert, but when I travel, suddenly I become an extrovert, and I just like start to talk to random people, and I have met so many interesting people. For example, I went to Indonesia, and in Jakarta, I just walked into this cafe that was very, very tiny because it was raining outside. And then it turned out that it's one of the specialty coffees over there. It was very interesting. It had a black cat. The owner had a black cat, which was just like, roaming around in the bar, like it owns the place. And then he had, every cup was different than the other. So it was a collection of cups that he got from everywhere. And then he was just doing drip coffee. And we just had a chat, and he wasn't very, like, his English was not very good. But we still did have a chat. And then there was another customer who started translating. And then we exchanged ideas. And then through him, I got to meet another lady roaster in Indonesia. So he gave me the details, he gave me the address, and I went to her the next day, and I got to meet her, and we did like coffee cupping, and it was just like very nice. And then she told me about a farm where she gets her coffee beans from, and then I was like, I'm going to Bali next, so I'm gonna go to that farm, which was very close to Bali. And then I went to the farm, and I told them about this lady that I met, and it was very nice. It's like it was just very random. I did not plan for all of that, but it was just, I don't know. I love it. It's just very exciting, where you just go unprepared, and then you meet all those amazing people who are passionate, and they're very helpful, and they give you tips about like where to find the best, and like go and meet this farmer and go and meet this person. And that opened another window for me to kind of like be interested in coffee roasting, which is something that I'm learning now, and I'm planning to learn more about, because I would love to start roast my own coffee. But I'm planning to visit more farms and start meeting a lot of farmers and roasters from around the world, as well, as much as I can, in order to get, like to learn more about their experience. And
yeah, what's great about the coffee industry as a whole is there's so many facets to it, and it's constantly evolving and it's constantly transforming. And the people that you meet, just based off of what that sounded like, it was so spontaneous. And there's a certain wanderlust. There's a certain level of adventure that comes through the coffee world, where it's just like, it's eye-opening, it's thought-provoking, and it creates such good, stimulating conversations with people who are genuinely also interested in having like very intellectually stimulating conversations. Yeah. And yeah, I love that experience. That's a beautiful experience. It just seems so genuine and so kind, and it seems very, I'm glad that it's like it opened a lot of doors with trying to understand coffee roasting as a whole, because coffee roasting is a very interesting like little subgenre of the coffee world after having been a coffee roaster now for over a year. There's a lot of interesting little knickknacks within this world.
Exactly. And also another point about the coffee world which I like is like we are very connected. We are all one community. And it's like those days it's life is getting harder and harder because of social media and the news, and like you're exposed to a lot of noise around the world, and it seems like it's all gloomy. So some days, like personally, like I would lose faith in humanity, and I was like, oh my god, life is becoming so stressful, and it's just like becoming more difficult, and then financial blah blah blah, politics. And then but when you interact with the people in the coffee community, go like, oh my god, they're so nice. It's like there's good in the world, and they're all helping each other, and they're all it's like doing good things and wanting to it's like they're very passionate about what they're doing, and it's just exciting, and they're keeping this world exciting. And it's like, no, people are nice.
Yeah, I think that there is a cliche in the coffee community that people stay because of the people, not because of the money. But it rings throughout always. Like, as much as like we hate cliches, it's just there's something about just the coffee community and the coffee people and the people involved, whether it's the farmers, producers, the importers, the baristas, the roasters, everything, every aspect of what involves getting coffee from origin to the consumer, that it's a conglomerate of so many beautiful kinds of people. And a lot of the time it's just people who genuinely like are artists, are extremely talented, are extremely intelligent, and it mixes really well.
Yeah. They're very kind about sharing their experiences. And that's what I love as well. Like, there is a healthy competition, I would say. And I'm not trying to romanticize the coffee world or anything. Like, there is like a bad side everywhere, but the majority of it is very, it's like they're very helpful, and it's a healthy competition, I would say.
Have you always enjoyed being a barista?
Yes. I really, really enjoyed it, because as an introvert, it taught me not just to love coffee, but to have interesting conversations and open up to people. So it started with me forcing myself to interact with customers with a lot of anxiety that I buried inside me and I suppressed. But then it started becoming more of a normal thing, and I started enjoying it because I would see regulars. Regulars helped a lot.
Yeah.
And then they would start asking about you, and then it's like you would look forward to seeing them every day and putting a smile on their face by remembering their name and their order, because they would order the same thing every day. And then it starts from there, and I started becoming more assertive with the challenging customers, for example, that I had to face in the cafe. And it just improved me as a person, I think, and it helped me break a lot of the anxiety, the social anxiety that I have, and the shyness. And just made me a better person, more open to meeting new people and learning about things. And it helped with my journey to independence, because it's a tough work. It's not easy to be on your feet all day as a barista and trying to keep up with the rush, especially if you're working in a busy place.
I guess, like, if somebody was to come up to you and ask you for advice, what would be the best advice you think you could give somebody who would want to kind of like, for example, I bet you get this a lot, but if people are like, oh my God, your entire store is so inspirational, like how you got here, I'm so inspired. Like, if I wanted to do the same thing that you're doing, like, what would you recommend I do?
Honestly, what I always tell people is be true to yourself. Try to stay authentic. Don't compare yourself to other people. Try to focus on your goals. Like, what do you want? If you started looking left and right and going like, oh my God, there's a lot of competition, there's a new cafe every single day, I don't know if I will be able to survive, then you will not be able to move forward. But if you focus on enjoying the journey and just like not thinking about the results, and just go like, okay, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna enjoy it, like seriously enjoy it, And if someone comes to you and go like, oh my God, this happened to me. I think 2 or 3 coffee shops opened next to me, right next door. And everybody was like, oh my God, Zainab, did you see the new cafe? It's gonna ruin it for you. It's like a customer base. Blah, blah. I was like, I don't care. Like, everybody is doing their own thing. I have my clientele. They're gonna have their own clientele. And it doesn't matter. Like, I still enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm not doing it for, as we said, it's so much of a cliche. It is like, I'm not doing it for the money, just for the money. I'm actually enjoying. I look forward to waking up and going to my cafe and smelling the coffee and learning about the new coffees that we're importing and meeting new people and just catching up with my friends. So just focus on that, be authentic and true to yourself, and enjoy what you're doing. And eventually you will reach, you will have your own story to tell.
I think that advice can actually apply to everything outside of the coffee world, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, whatever somebody decides to do with their life, I think that's just really good overall advice. I think the thing that stood out to me the most, and I kind of like have been victim to this, is the idea of not comparing yourself to other people's success and measuring your success through other people. Because it's really easy to kind of forget, like, everyone's journeys are different. Everyone's length of the journeys are different. And the idea that society as a whole likes to put a lot of emphasis on age and what you've accomplished in terms of age and where you kind of land at. And it's so intimidating and just makes you unmotivated to kind of work hard to try, especially people who want to change direction from careers. Like, if someone's leaving like finances or something that is extremely stable to something that is food industry service run like the coffee world, it's really hard to find the motivation. But I think that it's really good to understand the concept of not comparing yourself to other people and just stay true to yourself. And I think, I think that's pretty solid advice.
Thank you. That's why I also don't tell people what I'm doing until it's done, because people create a lot of noise that can make me doubt myself sometimes.
Yeah.
Because they look at things from their perspective, but what we forget is that I am the one who's passionate about this project. They don't have the same passion, so they would look at it from another perspective. It's good to have other perspectives as well, but we need to remember that they don't see it the same way that I see it as well. So their risk assessment is different than mine.
Do you feel like it was... So sorry. No, go ahead.
No, I mean, like, that's it. Like, for them, it doesn't have the same meaning that it has for me. So at the end of the day, the importance level is different.
So I think the last thing I really am curious about in terms of this is, like, how is it building yourself up as a businesswoman? Like, it seems like understanding coffee, being integrated into the coffee world and kind of taking in all of that information has been a positive attribute for you, and you've had a lot of support with that. I guess I'm curious, for somebody who kind of did transition through different careers and tried to find herself again, like, what was it like building yourself up and being like, okay, I'm going to open my own business, and like all of the steps to becoming a businesswoman, and to now, like, having gone through COVID and having been affected through that as a business, like, how has the journey of being a businesswoman been for you so far?
Very difficult. As much as I'm enjoying it, it's very difficult, and it continues to be. It's never easy. Because you come, like, you are different as an individual, and you have your idea, especially as a creative person. You want to make something that doesn't exist. For example, you want to make something new, and people are scared of new things. So when you want to do it, there are lots of other things involved, like, for example, approvals and going through all of that, like the paperwork, and then people questioning. It's like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just do this? Because everybody does this. I was like, that's exactly why I don't want to do it, because I'm not like everybody else. I want to have my own thing. So it's very, very difficult and exhausting at times to fight back until you convince people that I want to do something different, and I understand that it's difficult, but I am willing to do it. I don't want to do it the easy way, because I'm planning, like, my goal is different, and things that I want to achieve and bring to the table are different. So it's not easy to fight. It's just easier sometimes to give up and go like, okay, you know what? Just I'll do whatever everyone else is doing. But that's not what I want. I can't sleep at night if I did that. So um and there are times where I doubted myself because I had no business background. None of my family members own businesses and are familiar with business. So I didn't have anyone to go to when I decided to open a business. I just literally just did it.
Yeah.
Um, and I had to do a lot of research about interior design, and I didn't have enough money as well, so I ended up just like going shopping myself. And I didn't like I freaked out. I was like, oh my god, it's gonna look so ugly, because in my head it looks nice, but I don't have the end result. So I got every piece of furniture from somewhere according to my budget, and then I ordered some of the stuff from Etsy, like the lights and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, am I going to be able to find someone to install all of these things for me? And is the end result going to look nice or just going to look chaotic?
Right.
And then, I had moments of doubt. I was like, no, I can't do it. So I'm just going to give up. I'm going to, sell the place, or like I'm going to sell the furniture and everything else. And it's like I'm blessed to have some friends around and some people who I can go to, and they convince me to keep going. And sometimes when I face some difficulties, like let's say with after COVID happened, a lot of the logistics, a lot of the rules and policies around the logistics have changed, which is a
Mm.
nightmare, honestly. So the shipping cost is much, much higher with the inflation as well. The fuel prices, every time the fuel price goes up, the shipment goes, higher, and which means that I cannot uh, get some of the, like, import some of the beans that I used to get. So I have to make like last minute changes and try to
Mm.
find new suppliers, and everything is just like so expensive. So these difficulties sometimes are exhausting and challenging, but at the end of the day, you have to keep fighting for what you love and try to make it work and submit to certain circumstances until you find a solution around it. So it's never easy. But if you love what you're doing, then I guess there are some good days and there are some bad days.
Yeah, I think it goes to show if you really love what you do, you'll fight for it. Like at the end of the day, it's like it won't seem like work. I mean, it is work. How do I describe that? It is work. But like
work.
when it's something you love to do, you're not viewing it as a load of baggage. It's more like, okay, so these are just steps to getting to the end result. I think that
Exactly.
I love that you mentioned how you source some of the items that are in your store. Um, because I think that in general, like being a small business, it's sort of like that's not just only one situation that's happened. I think over the course of many small businesses, they do their best to try and source from what they can with what they got, you know?
Yeah. It's a fun journey, and it's important to think to know that nothing is nothing is gonna stay the way it is. So there's always room for progress. There's always room for growth, and the way I started is completely different. I started 4 years ago, and we just celebrated our fourth year. So it's like it's a completely different place, like in terms of like aesthetics, in terms of like the things that I'm offering, in terms of the people, the customers. Everything changes to the better.
That's great. I bet it's
Yeah.
really
So
interesting when you look back every year and see where it started to where it's going.
yeah. And one of the cute things, like a cute story, just this is random, has nothing to do with it. But during lockdown, the regular customers were missing the place so much, which I was telling other people as well, that it's a to the moon and back is a blessing and a curse at the same time, because a lot of the cafes and restaurants were able to depend on delivery. during lockdown. But for me, people loved coming to the space and enjoying the aesthetics of the place and the music and the whole vibe. So they wouldn't order. So delivery didn't work for me because, first of all, I'm not going to deliver coffee.
Like, don't ask me to do it.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Like, you need to enjoy it fresh. And it just didn't make sense to a lot of people to order because they want to come to the space and enjoy it. So that was a curse for me during lockdown. But anyways, we survived that. But one of the things that one of the customers did is, I don't know if the US was the same thing, but Animal Crossing, I think it's called, it became very popular.
Yeah.
And I didn't play that game, but this she's a friend of mine. So what she did is she created To the Moon and Back in Animal Crossing, and she put a sign that says To the Moon and Back. It was the cutest thing ever. And then she
so
sent
cute.
it to me. Yeah, she sent it to me, and I took it, and then I printed the picture and I framed it with the date because it has the tiny date of the lockdown, and now I have it at TTMB. Like, I just
oh my god, I love that. That's so cute.
It's so cute. It's so cute.
Oh my god.
So when you see people relating to the space to that degree, it's just like, for me, that's enough. It makes me happy.
I was gonna say, that just goes to show what you've made matters, you know, like for people to try and obviously replicate it in a way so that it's not forgotten, that it doesn't get abandoned. And I love that you framed it. So cute.
Yeah. And that's one of the things when you asked me if there was a person who gave me an advice or like supported me during tough times, when I answered that it's complex. So this is one of the things that kept me going, you know, the little gestures that reminded me how much people relate to the space. And it's not just important to me that people can relate to it in a very positive and very beautiful way as well. So all of that kept me going and, fighting.
I love that. I love that story. That's cute. I would love to see the space one day, just to like sit and like listen to you tell me the stories of everything that's in there. That's amazing.
Yeah, I would love for you to come and visit.
One day. I would love to. I have family in Abu Dhabi, so it's not like I couldn't go. It's like getting there. So.
Yeah, that's perfect then. Maybe you can come for the next World of Coffee event in Dubai.
That'd be so much fun. I would really wonder what that would be like, because I haven't had
very interesting.
I haven't had that much exposure to the coffee community as much as I'd like to, because everything is so like I'm located in the Midwest of the United States, so I'm located in a state called Ohio, and like everything's usually on the East Coast or on the West Coast.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like awkwardly placed in places that's not convenient to travel to either or.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think where's now is becoming a very popular. Is it Oregon? For coffee roasters?
That's on the West Coast.
Yeah, and San Fran.
Yeah.
So I met a woman in the coffee industry as well, from Barista Magazine, who did an interview with me, and then she came to visit during the World of Coffee event in Dubai, and she came to TTMB, and she was telling me about the barista, not the roaster guild that happens in San Fran every year, where all roasters come together and kind of like exchange information, which was something that I'm interested in attending one day. I think it happens every year in August.
Yeah, so I actually went to the one last year, but it wasn't in California. It was in Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
And that was a really, really amazing experience to be able to meet so many different types of people there. And yeah, it is a roasters retreat, so you get to like play around with different roasters as a whole. Some of them are like just like state of the art. They just came out. But yeah, no, it was a really interesting experience. I've met all of my like really good contacts from that experience. And it's really interesting when we all sit and talk and debate about it because it's not just roasters that attend. A lot of people are either representatives of their coffee brand or their importers or their Q graders. So it's like a very diverse group.
Mm. Yeah, I would love to attend that one day. Maybe this year, maybe next year. I don't know. We'll see. Of
Well, I appreciate you talking to me and like
course,
telling me
thank you
about you
for
and telling
inviting me.
yeah. Um, I will not hold you any longer. I know that it's late over there, so I appreciate you talking to me, and hopefully one day down the road our paths will cross and I get an opportunity to go to your coffee shop and to the moon and back and get to sit and talk and have coffee with you.
Yeah, and if I happen to find myself in Ohio, well, I don't know.
I
Maybe I'll
really
pass
hope you don't. Well, you have a great rest of your night, and I will be in touch.
Thank you so much, Elena. It was fun talking to you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.